Welcome to the new Grad Success Summit. I'm so excited. In this session, we are going to go exactly through what you need to do to create a perfect resume, cover letter, and get in through to that interview for your dream job. I'm here with Donna Lampke. She's a physical therapist, but she also is a certified professional resume writer. She actually has credentials that only several hundred people in the United States have. And so she's extremely talented, extremely knowledgeable, and she's going to be taking us through, walking us through a good resume, a bad resume, cover letters, and so much more. Thank you, Donna, for being here, and I'm so excited.
Thank you for asking me, Emma. I'm really excited to be part of this, and I love what you're doing, and it's going to make such a difference for people as they look for their careers.
Yes. And you're helping tons of people create their resumes every day. And so I'm excited that you've brought with you sort of a demo resume here so we can get right into the meat and go through some of the things we should do and we shouldn't do on our resumes to start.
Absolutely. The first thing you shouldn't do is have your picture. Companies will kick your resume out if you have a picture on it, because they know that you can accuse them of discrimination. So they will, if they see a picture, a lot of them will just absolutely throw your resume in the no file. So
Gotcha.
That's the number one thing. This one, there's so much wrong with this resume, and this was actually one of my coworkers was downsized a couple of weeks ago, and this is I changed the names and the locations, but this was her resume, and she listed her education first. If you are not a new grad, if you're a new grad, your education should come first. If you've even got 6 months of experience, you're going to put your work experience first. So that's one of the number one things. You always want your contact information. In this, she did not have a lot of companies on the ATS, and we'll get to the applicant tracking system in a moment, but they really want to know what your zip code, they've keyed in, they want to know what zip code you're applying from. So you would want to have that. The resume world goes back and forth whether you need to actually include a real street address or not. A lot of people say no, a lot of people say yes, if they're looking for a local candidate. So if I'm in North Carolina, so if I'm applying in Denver to a job, I might not get through the ATS because they don't want to deal with somebody that would relocate, maybe not like it, want to move back. So if I really wanted that job in Denver, I would put in Denver, Colorado, and a Denver zip code.
Yeah, and actually to work off of that, what I've done is if I know I'm relocating, I'm going to put that city or that zip code that I know I'm going to be going to, even if I haven't moved there yet, because you will definitely get pushback. Even if you get through the interview process, you'll get pushback anyways for not already being close to the vicinity of the facility you're wanting to hire for.
Now, the other thing under her contact is you see that the email address is not very professional, Sally Girl. Like, don't do that, because they look at things like that. Also, you shouldn't be putting your hobbies, not on your resume. And the other thing I would really recommend, 90% of hiring managers are going to look at your online presence. So you've got to really make sure that, do you have a LinkedIn profile? Does your LinkedIn profile match your resume? If you have discrepancies, they're going to see that, and that's going to kick you out. So your contact information, make sure that on your voicemail you have a professional sounding greeting, that you've put one number, you don't want to put two numbers. If you have an EDU address, like you're using your school address, go ahead and get a Gmail. You definitely want to get a permanent email address, just something professional.
Gotcha.
At least not Sally Girl.
Gotcha.
Something like that. So those are some basic things to begin with. The education setting, the education information, there isn't anything wrong with it. It's just the placement of it for her. And then the work experience, some of the positions had like description, some of them don't. That's you need consistency, whatever it is. And I would, for the work experience is a great place to include a lot of the keywords. And so how do you figure out what the keywords are? That you get that from the job postings, and then you can also go to like ONET, ONET with an asterisk, is going to have a lot of job descriptions and keywords you can use. And
Okay.
so you're just trying to weave your keywords throughout the whole entire resume.
Okay.
And the other thing that's going on in her resume that was disconcerting to me that I really, and you'll see, because I included the revised one that I did, her PRN positions were really spread throughout this resume. And so she initially felt like, gosh, I'm working full time, and they see that I've got a PRN position too. They're gonna look at my work ethic and think, man, I am a hard worker or go-getter. Companies typically think the complete opposite, and they feel like you've got too many irons in the fire, that they want you to focus on their job. And if they think that you're going to go do a bunch of PRN jobs, that's going to hurt you, not help you. And so if the PRN jobs that you do help to fill in a gap in your resume, so you have like a time period where you don't have a full-time job, then you definitely want to include them, but you don't want to do it concurrently overlapping with your full-time jobs. And the other thing is, if you're applying, say, if you've got a lot of outpatient experience and you're applying for a pediatric position, say maybe you did a peds rotation as a clinical, you would then, right above where the work experience is, I would put real specific related experience or focused experience, peds experience, label that header something that draws attention, even if it was when you were doing a clinical or very little time. You don't have to put a date with that, but you want to let them know that, even though you are richly resourced in outpatient, that you have been in that setting.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Any questions about any that I said with all that?
No, it makes sense. So basically, to summarize, we want to have our contact information, but we want to have a professional email. We want to include the address that we're either currently living, or if we're thinking about a job that's far away, the address that maybe we're going to relocate to, or worst case scenario, a zip code if you don't quite know where. Do not include your hobbies. You can talk about that in the interview because it's nice to be personable and relatable, but leave.
Absolutely. Now, the only other thing, there are times, and this is, I guess, where the training as a resume writer comes in, because there are no rules, they're just suggestions. And say if somebody was like an elite athlete or had done something very unusual, you've got to be careful, because sometimes if you include that on the resume, then that's going to hijack your interview, but it also can be what gets you to the interview.
Yeah.
So, like, I did a resume recently for a man that had gone back to PT school as a second career. He was really richly educated and had worked in the military. And I did one resume for him with all the experience and one without, depending upon what he found out through networking about who was going to be looking at his resume.
And I think that's such a big point. And I know you're going to be talking about the applicant tracking system soon, but that's a huge point, is personalizing your resume, personalizing your cover letter, really making it job focus. So if this is a pediatric position you're applying to, have your resume be tailored to pediatric
And
focus.
after we go through this, I mean, there's so many different ways you can start with even this discussion.
Yeah.
That the number one thing that I do when I write a resume, if you do not have a target job, you're wasting your money. And I get it that you might need one for networking if you don't know what you need to do. Then you can do a functional resume, which is just kind of listing things that you're good at and different scenarios you've been in, but it's not going to get you people. A hiring manager sees a functional resume and they know you're hiding something. So the best resume is a hybrid, which is what you'll see on the after that I've done.
Okay.
So you'll see that, but people really, really, really need to have a job target. And if I know you take the job posting, and so to see if you're even a candidate or not, you take the job posting and then you turn it into a list, like break each sentence down and list them. And so then you can look and see if you don't have it, say in a market where there's not a lot of competition, you might only need 80 to 85% of the attributes that they're looking. But in a saturated job market like the city where I am, it's almost impossible to get a job right now. And you would have to literally be in the 98 percentile of if you're applying for something, because each job posting that you see listed on Indeed or on a company website gets statistically anywhere between 115 and 250 resumes for each position. And the people, they're only 2 to 3% of those 115 to 250 actually get called into an interview.
Okay.
So that's daunting. Those are daunting statistics, but it helps you to understand the importance of networking.
Yeah.
And why you might not be getting callbacks. If you don't have experience in a certain area, then you're competing with a lot of people that do. And just because you could learn it or you'd be great at it, they want somebody ready to hit the ground running, and they're going to go with that candidate every time unless somebody knows you.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a job posting. So there's so much we're going to cover in this session. Don't you worry, everyone. We've got a job posting where Donna's going to walk through sort of how to even know what are these key points to then help focus your resume.
Well, scroll on down because let's see. She left out. Keep going to the next page. So she's just going through. Okay, so over here, guess what? She didn't put her credentials or her licensure. She left that off.
Yeah.
Like, you need to put in that you have an active license, and most of your job postings are going to say that, need to be CPR certified. So you need to include that as well.
Okay.
So you need those certifications and licensures. And then, depending on if your job's going to have an educational component or a component of doing presentations, you would enter a header where you could list those.
Yeah, that's what I've actually done in my resume. Is I normally have Emma Shapiro PT DPT, and then below that I've got license in particular states is actually really important, especially if you are also considering doing per diem or traveling if you're in states that are relatively close to each other. And so then I've got below that licensed in California, New York, New Jersey. Then I've got my email address, my phone number, and my address.
Yeah, and that's not, depending if that's important, it's just the matter of importance. Like, I think if I was applying for a traveler position or to be all around the country, I would definitely highlight that up top. But in the resumes that I do, I'm going to go really with a branding statement right out of the box. Mm-hmm. And then underneath the branding experience, the branding statement and your key qualifications and key, your main that's a good place to put in some keywords or competencies in your job posting, and then the licensure. Just depends on if that licensure is very important. If you're on the state line and you have both states, then I might move my licensure and certifications up above the work experience. So it's just like Emma, you were saying, that is the kind of thing you can quibble over, but that's where my training is helpful. I know if you can do it or not, and if it's going to hurt you.
Now, the other question I get all the time from people is, do you do 1-page or 2-page resumes? How much of a factor is that?
The typical guideline is if you've got 10 years or less of experience, you want a 1-page. I've heard hiring managers say that they want everybody's resume to be 1-page. The truth is, if you're going through the applicant tracking system, it doesn't matter how long your resume is, because it's scanning the whole document.
Okay.
And so I kind of recommend having a hard copy resume that you're going to hand to people, and then have another resume that you've equipped for the ATS. So I like most people under 10 years of experience, like mine. I've been a practitioner for a really long time and done a lot of presentations and given a lot of training. And so my resume is an easy 2-page, but you lose people on it that really they're looking, when people look at a resume, they're looking at your branding statement, and then they want to know if you can do the job, and then they go immediately to your work experience. They want to know where you worked and what setting you're in.
Yeah.
So it's something I have on my website. I have a webinar that really kind of goes into that and tells you what you need in that resume. And a 1- and 2-page, how you see how hers very little was at the top of the second page. With formatting, I would get everything on 1 page for her.
Yeah.
So you just don't, you want to include a lot of white space, but they don't mean include a lot of white space that way. It's like, look how much is blank. So that ain't going to work.
Now here is, and I apologize, this is my own mistake. I was trying to make all of this into a PDF to share better on the webinar. So it, for some reason, kept the formatting of the bad resume. So for everyone, ignore this sort of manila color here. Typically when you do a resume, you want to just have it be blank white, right, Donna?
You just want to make sure that it's not going to interfere with the applicant tracking system. This is, I think this particular design is distracting. So you can have things, you can have like borders, you can have lines under the headers, you can use colors, but I think especially we're not in the graphic arts. So people aren't looking at our resume, they look at us. You want something reasonably professional. And so this is definitely, I would have removed, like if I got this as a resume that I was critiquing, I would remove that, the colored part of it. The other thing is that somehow, and when I transmitted things to Emma, everybody, that that information should be centered underneath her name.
Yeah, so those are my boo-boos. So, so pretend that this is a white resume and that this is centered. But this is the example of the type of quality that Donna normally advocates for in a resume. So can you just sort of go through why would this be so much more?
I like this because, you have the person's name, people hire people they like. So you wouldn't put her as Sally R. Woods. That Sally, you wouldn't put Sarah R. Woods. If you go by Sally, put Sally.
Okay.
So then the Jacksonville and the zip code, the telephone number is there. And then you see that it's a more professional sounding email address. and it included her LinkedIn. So that's a really, people don't understand how important LinkedIn is. And then what you want right under that is the specific job title that you're applying for. If they list outpatient physical therapist, you put outpatient physical therapist there. If they put physical therapist there, put physical therapist there. If it's occupational therapy, whatever, this transcends all of the disciplines. So basically, you're just parroting the job title. And one of the blogs I've written was, how many resumes do you need? As many jobs as you're applying for, because you need to customize it. Yep. So you got that. And then what I did with her, I just, I've got to get her a lot of attention as quickly as possible. She wants to stay in my city that has very few job openings. So I want people to look at that and think, okay, what am I getting when I get her? Well, she's super high performing, reliable, efficient, flexible. She's like your go-to physical therapist. So I went ahead and put some words. If people are scanning fast, they'll beeline into those. Also, for the person that is more of a reader, for the hiring manager that's more of a reader, this is also getting some keywords in there for the applicant tracking system. So I do a branding statement, and that is basically, if they talk about it being your elevator pitch, that if you were riding down the elevator with the owner of the company, what would you say about yourself that would explain to them why you are the person for this job? And then like with her, like, people always want to know, are you ready to, she's had a lot of experience in a lot of different situations. She's not quite sure exactly what areas she wants to go work in, probably just anyone where there's a job right now, but highly adaptable to any clinical environment. So you want anywhere from 3 to 5 bullet points there. You can leave out this is where the no rules come in. You can leave out the branding statement, the paragraph, and go straight to the bullet point, because I really want to capture everything I possibly can for her. Is we're just going this way.
Okay.
This covers the basis. And then, so what I've told her is, like, you see the section where it says core competencies include. So if you're going to go into a pediatric environment, you look at the pediatric keywords and include, you 100% want to tell the truth. You don't want to say you have qualities that you don't. But as you're struggling to weave keywords into your entire resume, you can, this is a nice place. You can put 10 to 13, 14 kind of blurbs of like customers, customer service documentation. You're just finding those keywords. So then we're dropping down to the professional experience. And so you want a brief description. Everybody kind of knows what you do, but it's the keywords again. So like a 1 to 3 sentence description of what you do. And then you want to immediately drop into some accomplishments. So you want to think about, and in healthcare, it's hard because we don't have quantifiable numbers like that they do in sales. But if you were part of a team where your patient satisfaction scores were improved from 70% to 85%, so then you would say you were a key participant in driving a 15% improvement in patient satisfaction scores.
Yeah, something that really highlights like what I tell this to a lot of new grads, for their clinicals, highlights your independence. So if you're a new grad trying to get a job, all you're going to have is clinicals, rotations. And right. So for that, highlight how many patients you were able to see today.
Absolutely. So what you want to do is compare yourself to other people, and you can safely say, top, if it was the truth, if you were in the top 10% of productivity, you could put something like that. Yes. So that's a great accomplishment. And, like a go-to therapist for adapting to and addressing scheduling emergencies. She was that person that so just anything that sets you apart and lets them know that why are you their person? Why do they want to hire you for this? And so when you think about creating, I think about it as the CAR technique. You think of a challenge and then your action and then the result. So you get that written down. And so so I'm going to jump quickly to kind of, if you're going through a job posting, that you look and see, oh, they want somebody that's done this. Well, this is a great example of when I've done that. You could use that as one of your bullets.
Okay.
And so when you actually write the resume, even though you do the CAR approach, which is challenge, action, result, you write it as a reverse CAR. So the result and the challenge and the action. So you lead with what you did.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And so, like when the second one, the outpatient physical therapist, there wasn't anything that she could really think of that was a particular accomplishment. And so and of course there's not the white space. I think that was just the formatting.
Yeah, that's just the formatting.
So these were all like in a row with each other. But you want to pull out any accomplishments you can, but they're really looking at the job title. And in her resume in particular, they're going home health, outpatient, peds, outpatient clinical director. So you can quickly, with those job titles, you already know what she's done and who you're getting if you hire her. I mean, and another thing that happens is, that you're hiring a clinician, because back in 2008 to 2012 was when she was a clinic director, and she didn't do it again. So that was not her thing. So they're reading between the lines about you. If she was applying for a clinic director, then we would have redone her resume very differently with this. That I would have focused on that. But she doesn't want that. So I also, though, wanted to include the fact that, she's good with managing things. That if you're looking for somebody that can punt for you when the manager's like on vacation, hey, she's got managerial experience, this might be a good fit. So does that make sense why I might have done it that way? What you're looking at, she's somebody with about 15 years of experience. So really, you don't need to go back any further than 10 years. You could add at the bottom after when you get back to the 10-year mark, where you see the 2008, under that, you could end up putting additional clinical experiences, and you don't need to include the date, because the number one area of discrimination in healthcare is age. Not color, not anything else, not male, female, it's age. The problem is we're all coming out with a license, and the longer you've had it, the more experience you have. And so rather than that being valued, sometimes it is perceived as expensive. So I really, for people with 10 years or more, I begin to try and hide, because, obviously when you fill out your application, you have to put your date of college graduation. They're going to know, and that might kick you out right away. Like if the applicant keywords, the ATS, if they're looking for a less expensive employee, they're not going to interview anybody over 5 years of experience. So
and
that can kick you out.
And you were even saying, so like in addition to just, tailoring the jobs that we mention, and then how many years of sort of experiences, even if you have a lot of jobs, sometimes we don't even need to say all of them. So similar with the age, Donna and I before this were talking about the PRNs, or just some, maybe random job that you had for 2 weeks. Like, you don't need to put every single job, right, Donna, on
really
this.
And you don't need to put, one of the ways you can kind of camouflage some things is leaving off the specific months. So like, what if you were traveling all through Europe in 2000 and you went from February 2015 to November of 2015. So it looks like you have a big gap, and they're like, oh gosh, if she could go off to Europe again. But in this, you can see that, so it's 2000, they don't know when in 2015 you transitioned. And so they don't know. So that's a good way of kind of flying under the radar, of course. So all you're trying to do with your resume is get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And so, the problem is you can have the resume, but you can spend 3 hours filling out a company's application, and you can hide all you want in your resume, but you can't hide it on that application. You've got to tell the truth. So if you graduated in 1990 from PT school, that's just going to ding you. You're going to end up looking like you got close to 30 years of experience, and they know they're going to have to pay you more. So you're going to have to network your way into a job.
Gotcha.
And especially if you're looking in more of a non-clinical experience type of job, then you're going to really have to work hard. And there are times that you can do your own resume, and then there are times you need to hire a professional. If you're transitioning, it's worth paying the money.
Definitely.
Because you hear people all the time saying, I've sent out 60 resumes and I'm not getting anywhere. A lot of times if you came to me and said, I'm trying to transition, I would say, well, one of the things is you're not going to get a call back. I can't write it. So you're not going to be able to compete with who out there is wanting the job. We'll talk about strategies of, hey, you know what? You need to be volunteering for these kind of committees and working with your marketing people anywhere if you think you're going to eventually go in a certain direction. Think about your resume from the beginning.
Yeah.
As a new grad, what's missing? Why didn't I get the job? Who did they hire? And then you can see what you need to go back and do. It's kind of like the best example I know is when I decided to go to PT school, I had been in the travel industry. I had to go back and take 2 years of math and science courses before I could even apply to PT school, but I shot my target. I knew what I wanted to be, and it was a PT. So I made a list of everything I needed to do, and I became the person that they had admitted into school.
Yeah. It's the same thing. You want to sort of tailor everything towards that specific job, your specific goal.
Yeah, you just don't want to be throwing darts into the dark.
Yeah.
You don't even know if the dart board is in front of you or behind you. So you need to look and really see where you're going, and then certainly bring anything that you've got to the forefront, but also look and go, this would really help if I did these continuing ed courses. If I wanted to go be an outpatient therapist, if I wanted to transition, the number one thing I would have to do is over the next 6 months, take some very hard-hitting outpatient orthopedic courses. And then they'd go, okay, she cares, she's trained, she can do it. Yeah. Otherwise, they're going to look at my experience in acute care and home care and go, we're going to have to kind of tell her how to fix a tennis elbow. That's not what I do. I know how to get you off a ventilator. I don't know how to get your elbow better in today's, the fastest way.
That's a good point is that, because this summit is for everyone, even though it is more new grad focused, I'm sure that there's other people that are going to be listening saying, I really want to know how to create a great resume. And the resume can almost be like a map showing you what you're missing.
Yeah, see, that's another good point, Emma. Anybody with our licensure, and that's PTOT speech, we all need a CV, a curriculum vitae. And that curriculum vitae stands for courses of your life. And so you really want that can really show where you don't have the qualifications. And it allows you to quickly put a resume together when everything is in one place. So you don't include everything from your CV in it. Like when I was applying for my home health job, I didn't list, I had to downplay my presentations because, and they already, they're going to go, we're afraid you're going to be bored. You're used to teaching and doing this and that and the other. And, so I went into the interview and I said, what's scaring you about my resume? And they looked, the two people that interviewed me said, we're afraid you're going to be bored. And luckily I knew that that's what they would be thinking. And I had a great answer, which was, I've been bored for the last 10 years. What excites me about therapy now is being one-on-one with people in the home. So, boom.
Yeah. It's sort of like, basically, I think what you're saying is, it's like, tailor everything. If you want a job and you feel like something's going to hurt you, don't put it on.
Right.
You can leave it off. If you want a job and you feel like you don't have enough experience, bump it up with some of those core competencies, like what Donna was
absolutely. I think about one of my great buddies was head of critical care at a level 1 trauma center. And so she needed when she quit, she needed 3 different resumes. She needed one really basic for PRN. So I had to take everything out of her resume because it would scare everybody. Can she even do regular work? And so we had to really go back to her basics. Another one I had to do a CV for because she teaches nationally. She does continuing ed. So she needed a CV type. And then she ended up as program director in a really nationally prominent home health company. And so she needed to then, it did hit into her leadership that she had done as lead critical care. So you would look at it and you go, how is this the same person? But it depended on the job she wanted.
Yeah.
So you shine the spotlight on that part.
Now, should we go into the job application next and going over that, or do you want to go into the cover letter?
What I would do real quickly is go to the eye scanning.
Yep, gotcha.
And then we can just wrap it up. So what you're seeing on the left is there's a company called The Ladders, Ladders, that really is about careers and giving you guidance and all that. That they did a eye scanning with the resumes that people had used in the past, and you can see what happens is that they start out, and by midway down, you lost the reader. They're gone. Okay, so it was just blah 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 blah. It was too much. It's not how people read anymore. We're on Instagram with hardly no words and except people's comments, and then you've got people with Twitter and it's just blurbs here, blurbs there. So that's why even when I first started writing resumes about 7 years ago, your bullet points could be anywhere from 2 to 3 sentences long. Now best practice is to try and have them one sentence, one line.
Gotcha.
Because people won't read them. So you can see that people quit reading. Now, this is one that, and you can see it's very similar to the resume I created for the after part, right? So you've got the branding statement at the top. And so you see they spent the time, they read the whole thing there. And then they looked at the most recent job. They really spent some time on that. You see where the red is? Mm-hmm. And then they dropped down. They wanted to look at the rest. And then they really dropped down and looked at her education.
Because you have to be qualified. They want to know, are you qualified? And then can you even work in that setting?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think our attention spans are so short. So it's make it bold, make it short to the point.
Yeah. You have to realize, too, that if your resume is lucky enough to make it through the ATS, then so out of the 115 to 250, they might actually pull anywhere from 20 to 40 to be looked at by a real person. And then that person is going, yes, no, maybe. They give each resume about 5 to 7 seconds. That's all they're reading. When you're getting the first look, they're going, yes, no, maybe. Really 5 to 7, 9 seconds maybe. And then they'll go back, they'll ditch the no's, and then they'll keep the maybes to the side. and they'll look at the yeses and do yes, no, and maybe again on those. They might not ever need to look at the maybes. So you see what I'm saying? That you've got to really jump out quickly. So you know, if you've got 5 seconds, they'll read your branding statement, your key accomplishments, look at where you've worked, and they'll also scan to make sure you haven't had big gaps in your job history. Because if you're competing against somebody, like if you've had a continuous tenure history, you're going to show a lot better than somebody that took 3 to 5 years off. Not that you can't, but you've just got to know how to hide that and speak for that time you weren't actively employed. So that's important. So that eye scanning helps you understand why. And you really don't want to go use the templates on Word. You think that they're ATS compliant, but they're not. So you got to be, that's one of the reasons I started the business that I have, is all my templates are applicant tracking compliant. And they maybe they're not as catchy and as vibrant as some of the things you're going to see online, but what, like the $79 like cheap resumes, but they're not going to get you through the applicant tracking system.
I think that brings us to a good point, Donna. Do you think now's a good time to sort of dive deeper into the ATS?
Yeah, let's do. Okay. I think that's smart. I think we keep referring to it, and people are like, so what in the world are you even talking about? and it's interesting, you guys, because even I've had so many students through the years, and then I'm very dedicated to helping. I lectured at National Student Conclave about this 2 years ago, I think it was. And people didn't even know what the ATS was. And so you can go to your career center in the college, and they might not even know to tell you about that. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking Systems. And at this point, 90% of any company, if you're applying online, you are applying through the applicant tracking system. So what they do, it's an algorithm where they kind of tell the computer who they're looking for, and they can be really specific. We want to only interview people that come from these zip codes. We only want, say, in North Carolina, and jobs are very competitive, and we have lots of PT schools, I think like 12 at last count. And they might say, we only want to see resumes from ECU, Duke, and Chapel Hill. And so they can key that in, and the ATS will scan down and they'll give you a number. They'll give you like, okay, you get a 5 for that, or
like a rating
for this. Yeah. So what they're doing is they're assigning number values to what's on your resume. And so your score, the number of times, if they're looking for an acute care therapist, and so they want someone with experience, then they're going to look through your resume how many times you have the word acute care. And they're going to score you, you'll get a point each time. So if your resume scores at, say, 35 points, you're competing. So they're going to pull the other people that are 35 to 40 to be who they call back. You might not even be the best candidate, but the ATS doesn't know. So the ATS, it's like I said, that if you're using that to get a job, only 5% of people get a job going through the job boards and like that, just blindly. 95% of people get their jobs through networking. So it's like, who did you know when you did your clinical? Can you go back and think, okay, I've been out practicing for 5 years. I'm ready to leave this setting and go into another one. It's important to keep in touch with who your CIs were and the relationships that you developed in your clinicals and anywhere you worked.
Definitely for networking, and even for being your reference too. Like I always tell every single job, make sure you get their information, their email, their phone number, and because
stay in touch.
And
that's
stay in touch. Yeah.
LinkedIn is good. Social media is so important at this point that I know when I changed from the acute care setting to the home care setting, I've stayed friends with her, but I had not talked to her in a long time. But somebody from PT school, she is a director, a branch director for the company I am with, but in a different city. And she knew the rehab director in my branch and called her, and I had a resume and in front of her and a response, and Kim saying to Kelly, you need to hire her. And otherwise she would have not known who I was. I would have had a hard time getting through the applicant tracking system. Mm-hmm. So it's important to maintain your connections all along. You never know when somebody is going to be helpful.
So back to, I agree 100%. I agree with you. I think you need a combination where networking, but also having, this really great resume and cover letter that follows by these guidelines. Is there anything
so when you network and somebody says, send me your resume, you need to have it ready.
Yeah.
And
it needs to be good.
Yeah. I mean, like my friend that I just did one for, she was a top performer, and the last thing in the world she was expecting was that the meeting she had with our branch director was going to result in her being told, we need your computer, goodbye. They downsized, and luckily I was one of the first phone calls that she made, and I was like, okay, don't worry, I've got your career documents covered.
Yeah.
Because otherwise she was like, I feel like I'm in kindergarten. What do I even do? I'm like, well, luckily you don't worry about that, but don't be that person that doesn't stay prepared.
Now that actually brings up two questions. I want to circle back to how to, what exactly does the ATS mean? Is it just about keywords and how to understand that? But also, you really advocate for every single transition or job to keep your resume updated, correct? Like that's what I do, at least. Every time I have a new job, I put it in there.
And see, that's why I like the CV, the curriculum vitae. Every year you should be going through it and going, okay, where, when did I give a lecture? When did I give this talk? You think you'll always remember it. You won't. What project did you work on? You never know how, like I'm doing a lot of projects right now at work based on the changes that are going to value-based purchasing and home care. Well, I'm a clinician. I want to stay a clinician, but on down the road, what if I want to go into quality assurance or, more of a management type of thing? I need to remember when I did those things and what it entailed.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to update all the time. The applicant tracking system, again, stands for, the ATS. The problem is there are over 300 different applicant tracking systems. So everybody's not using the same one. Otherwise, I could say do this, this, and this. Okay. It's a moving target, and there's some that. So what happens is, like, if you see something online that says send us your resume and we'll run it through the applicant tracking system and tell you if your resume is compliant. Well, it's a scam. They're running it through, and they're going to tell you, no, it doesn't. We'll rewrite your resume for you for $75. So be really careful with all of that, because there's not one particular type. There's one Talio that it's maybe 30% of them use, but you just don't know.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's go here to
cover letter.
Yes, there we go. So here is the cover letter that Donna wrote for Sally Woods. Do you want to sort of go through, what makes a good cover letter? Because sometimes for me, when I have a cover letter, I don't even know where to begin. It's so difficult. So what are some key tips that people can use?
The thing is, it's interesting because you can do a full-blown hard copy cover letter, or you can also do cover letters through email as well. The ones on email are going to be more casual. Your written ones need to be pretty formal. You want to go to the trouble of finding the name of the hiring manager. And so that's what's gone on in this situation. So she knows that it's Dr. Anita Pallenberg is the program chair for the position that she wants to apply to. Okay. So she's named the position that she's applying for.
Gotcha.
Okay. And so in this one, this is a different resume. So basically you're wanting your header, see where it says Sally Woods, that was the same font and everything with that particular resume. And there are some formatting because you can see that there's some
something when I transferred it is a bit funky, but yeah, exactly. Having consistent font, consistent size.
Absolutely. Okay, so you're addressing it to her, and so if you have a connection to anybody, then you definitely want to name those people. So she says here she's worked with Patty Hansen and Etta Richards and gave me your name to contact. So you've already created, there's somebody went up my stairs, created a personal contact and a reference. So this lets Dr. Pallenberg go, I can go ask these people what's she like. Is she somebody we'd be interested in? And put in a good word for you. So then you make a case of why do you want to do this? So this is more in a transitional thing that they've not been working in an academic setting. So they're trying to sell why they're making this change. So you're doing that. And then you want to put in there why you're qualified for that position. Mm-hmm. And as you go down, then the last pair, typically what you don't want it to just reiterate your resume. You really want it to kind of summarize and have a more personal touch. You want to always close with a call to action. And so you see that last paragraph.
Definitely. So it's sort of like, this is where you tell the story of your resume. So the resume is sort of like that bullet point scan. And then your cover letter is more of the description of your journey, the description of why you're transitioning to this job, and for me, I always put in, what can I provide?
Why you're just telling them this is why you should choose me instead of her or him. Yeah. And you're exactly right, Emma, that it is the story of your journey. And especially, I know that, you and I both have worked a lot with the non-clinical career path people. And this is exactly where you explain. There's no place that a cover letter is more important than in those times when you're transitioning from one area to another. Because like if I'm not a hiring manager at acute care and for my example, I was in acute care for 26 years. A hiring manager is going to want to know why all of a sudden I wanted to go to home health. And I didn't want to dwell on the real reason is we all got mad and quit. 50 of us at my acute care place, because you don't want to go in negative. What you're doing is you're going, I'm really ready for a change, and I want to go back to the roots of being in the home environment and meeting people where they are. So you've got to think about the story that you're telling. You want it to be the truth. That was a true part of the story. Mm-hmm. It maybe wasn't the main story, but that other story wasn't going to sell well.
Yeah.
And so you want to think about, how it sells. And, this is a very lengthy cover letter. And when you remember too that maybe 25% of cover letters are ever read, that's not very much. But if you're applying to a company in the 25% that wants the cover letter, you're really messing yourself up by not having that. You've eliminated yourself as a candidate. You can never take the chance of not having one.
Yep. And making it just like with the resume, making it personalized to that position, making it job specific. Mm-hmm. So, if you're really in a hurry, then you can, simply change the college to another college or, X facility to X facility.
Yeah, you can use some of these for the same thing. I mean, you can always tweak. Once you have your initial product, then everything's just tweaking.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're getting ready to go out and you want to change your clothes like 10 times before you go, you still kind of have you ready.
Yeah.
And so that is what trying on different resumes is like, that you're ready, but you're going to show off this or you're going to show off that. And the other thing I want to bring up, that not only is a cover letter important, but when you get your job interview, no matter whether you think you nailed it or flubbed it, whatever you did, you still write a thank you note. And you explain to them why you think you'd be a good fit for the job, because you don't know, even if you don't get the job. I can't tell you how many people I know didn't think they got a job, didn't work out with the person they hired. 6 months later, they get called.
I actually concur so much with that. So cover letters are actually huge. When I moved from California to New York, this cover letter actually was one of the reasons why someone interviewed me for a home health position. Now, I didn't end up choosing that, but she told me that she was like, this was the best cover letter I'd ever read. And I normally don't interview. I was a fairly recent new grad, so I normally don't interview new grads, but for you, I had to. So this
Emma, that's really cool. See, y'all, this. That, there are lots of ways you can nail this. And so don't get discouraged. I mean, what Emma's doing, putting this whole thing together, is just so incredible. Like, it's such an opportunity to really go, okay, now I feel better about how to go get this job.
Now you can get the job. You can definitely get the job. Yes.
Yes. So any other questions about the cover letter? Does that make sense?
No, I think that makes sense. It definitely does. And the thank you note, circling back to that, Donna is 100% correct in that. Actually, I was recently part of sort of the hiring process at my current job, and someone who thanked us wrote back, and it doesn't have to be a letter. It was just an email, but she all of a sudden went to the top of the pile. And my supervisor was so much more interested in her because he knew she was actually interested, because supervisors don't want to waste their time with someone who doesn't really want to actually work there. So putting in, if that is your dream job and you really want it, putting in that extra time to simply email back.
And then looking at how you treat people. So when you go for the interview, make sure you're arriving early. And I know there are times, like, I've known people that, like, the secretary was sent down to the lobby of an 850 bed facility to see how the person acted when they came in and treated people.
Yeah.
Like in the lobby, and the people, like, they asked directions for, were they friendly? Because that's how competitive it can be these days.
It really is. If you have a dream job, then you have to just think about going above and beyond. Now, we are going to go now to the, hopefully I can find it. Okay, good. Here is the job posting.
Perfect. Very good.
And so I just found this off of LinkedIn. And so I just copied and pasted here. This is for Results Physical Therapy. This is their job posting right from Indeed, actually.
Okay. So what I do, I go in, I copy and paste it, and I turn it into put it on a blank Word document. And then I take each sentence and list them on top of each other. If it's a paragraph, I just break it down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I pull, like, interested, here's more to consider. I don't include that.
Yeah.
So it's really important when you look at a job posting, you also go to the website of the company and understand what their mission statement is and their culture, because they're really looking to see if you're going to fit in with the culture. And so I'm leaning in, sorry to lean in, but I'm leaning in to read. So you see that they offer a collaborative work environment. They're going to want somebody that collaborates, that's a talented team member with a commitment to their mission. So you better know what their mission is. What do? They help people live a life without pain. So that might, these are all things that might go into your branding statement. So you're just rewording this, you're looking at this. And so what you want to do is you look at the job duties and responsibilities. So obtain patient's medical history. I would probably, use medical history as one of my core competencies, but where are examples where you've evaluated and administered treatment in consultation with the referring physician? So you want to make sure that each of those things that you're looking at, that the job responsibilities are, then you need to make sure that you've said, I'm that person. So not that you're going to include everything in your resume that you write, but that is like when you were writing a term paper and collecting all your notes. You're collecting your notes here.
Gotcha.
So you just want to be able to say that, yeah, I'm 100%. So come down to the qualifications.
Okay.
So, they need your license okay, so what if you can't take the exam for 6 months? You can still apply, but you're probably not going to be the person. So you want to look and see, you must be a graduate or soon to be graduate. So they're telling you right there, please, if you're a new grad, go ahead and apply. You're somebody we want. And the successful candidate will be willing and eager to learn new concepts. So in your resume, in your branding statement, you would talk about how great you are at learning new concepts and therapy techniques. And anything that's where are examples where you've had great communication and interpersonal skills, and how did your CI know that you were highly motivated, or your first employer? What are the examples? So that's what they're going to be looking at. They're putting these qualifications in because they're what they want. That they want to know that you're highly motivated. So, you can't just go tell them I'm highly motivated. Like, they want to know, well, tell me a scenario that demonstrates how we knew that you would be highly motivated. So does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. So basically you take and you make all these into sort of like a column of all the sentences. And then you're basically sort of sifting through, finding the keywords and the key points, which some are already bulleted, but the keywords and the key points, and then making sure that you've included those keywords in your resume.
Yeah, like this one, I just zeroed in. Assist in training support personnel and the provision of in-service programs. So, like, I'm just going with a new grad in my mind. So I know when I worked in acute care, one of the things each new grad had to do was provide an in-service. So, you would reference that in times you've done something in school, or if you are, you look and see, okay, they want to know that you've done this. So you list the times that you have, and then performs clinical and other duties assigned. So, you need to, once again, back to the new grad, that you were a high performer in all your clinical settings and what settings you were in. So you're just going through and thinking of two to three things that indicate where you've been successful. Then you weed it out. And then, when you saw the resume, the redone one that I did for my friend, that you have the branding statement and then the key qualifications. So what you do is you come back in and pick out your very top qualifications for the job and put them in that top third. The top third of your resume is prime real estate. That's really that's where you really want to put a lot of meat and potatoes.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Well, I think you've done an excellent job of covering the cover letter, the resume, and sort of how to take a job post and make sure that's formulated so that you do have a really specific and targeted resume. I know that you are also a really great help in networking on LinkedIn. Can you just share? I know there's so much more to talk about. That could be a whole nother talk in itself.
It really
But do you think you could maybe just share like 3 main points about networking and what you've learned about LinkedIn?
Well, I'm going to broaden it even more than just LinkedIn. I'm going to talk about social media, and that it's really important to Google yourself and see what the world sees about you, because you're the companies, and if you think that hiding behind like like I'm Donna Lampke, so if you Google me as Donna Lampke, you get one thing. But let's say I decided to put my name under Facebook as Donna Louise. I think, oh, they're not going to find me because I don't have my last name. Well, guess what? The email address I signed up on Facebook is what they're looking for, and that will link them to you. So no matter, like, any email that you use, they're going to trace to different websites that you are a participant in. And they're going to look at your online presence. So you want to make sure you clean it up. You also want to Google yourself and hit images, because you wouldn't believe some of the pictures that come up. So you might need to do some scrubbing of your social media. You might need to untag yourself. I have 2 grown sons, and boy, you should like see me going. They just don't even do social media because they've seen the pitfalls of, like, if the wrong picture is seen by you or you get tagged, it's a real problem. But LinkedIn is really great because especially with networking, 7 degrees of separation, the Kevin Bacon thing, that it is shocking to me that how many, like, I know it's amazing how many people I know that, like, are linked by 7 degrees to, say, somebody in Seattle. If I was moving to Seattle, that could help me say, hey, I see you have this friend. Could you, like, introduce me and like get a word in? The other thing with LinkedIn, what's really cool is I don't like to use the word stalking, but it's kind of like, if you find out that Emma is the director of rehab at the facility you want to be, so I'm just going to use you as an example, Emma. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and see Emma's profile, and I'm going to look at the groups that she participates in with discussions. So I'm going to join that group, and I'm going to start interacting in those discussions. And then that automatically creates a connection where I could either in those discussions, or I'll send you a separate email and say, hey, I've noticed that you're a really wonderful presence in this discussion group. I'd love to just pick your brain about this particular topic sometime. Do an information interview with them. So does that help kind of describe how you would network off of LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, and there's so much, and that's the same for in person. I mean, just basically the concept is that always be open, always be polite, always be professional, because you don't know who is watching you, and you don't know who you'll run into that could actually turn into an amazing opportunity in front of you one day.
And it was interesting because, like, even today, I went in and I saw my nurse manager, and she said, I had somebody say something really nice about you. And I was like, who? And she said, of all people, a coder, one of our QA people. They never say anything nice about anything. And I've just always been very polite and receptive and collaborative with them. And, the thing is, if I ever wanted to go in QA, that person that said something nice about me, I've never met her, but I could reach out to her and go, hey, Karen, how do you get into QA? And so you never know. It's just nice to be a nice person, because you got to remember that the way you treat people on the way up is the way they're going to treat you when you're, like, on the way down and need something. So it's always good to be professional and personal and collaborative, and always, like, when the QA people send me something back, instead of getting mad, I'm like, try and be curious about why they're confused about what I've written. And so think the best of it, rather than this person's a pain in my rear. That networking can come from any direction, and it's the person that you buy Chick-fil-A from, and then they notice that you come in in your scrubs every day, and they go, you know what? My uncle is, like, the director of admissions, and you don't know. So it just, networking isn't just going and meet and greet, shaking hands. It's reaching out. I mean, I met you, Emma, and Meredith Caston by just reaching out and saying, hey guys, I'm so excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, it's there's always opportunities all the time.
Yeah.
Donna, you've done an amazing job of walking us through the resumes, cover letters, networking, even some interview tips sprinkled in. If someone has wants you specifically like to share some specific tips on their own resume, where can they go? Do you want to share your website in case people?
Yeah, I would love to. And I really want this to be interactive specifically for the therapy community. That's my mission statement. I love being a clinician. I do it full time, but I put a lot of time and energy into this, and I created products that people can use fairly inexpensively. And it has a huge amount of information, and I have a free webinar. I have a lot of blogs that like that touch on different questions. If you have a question, let me know and I'll write a blog about it. My website is DIY, like do it yourself. So D as in David, IY, career documents for, and then you should be able to find it. And my name, Donna Lampke. I mean, it'll pull up, but I have products for and advice for new grads, experienced professionals, and people that are transitioning. And I was talking to Emma about this yesterday, that like, because I'm busy and doing what I do, I like to have a do-it-yourself product, but I want to be there to handhold for you. What I've done is taken all the information that I've learned in all the accreditation and training that I've had, and kind of teach you how to be me. And then when you get it done, send it to me and I'll tweak it for you as part of the package. So I think I know that we're all on budgets and resumes are really expensive. So I've tried to figure out a way to do it in an economical and very professional way to help people with like best practice for today's resumes.
Definitely. Well, your services have been used for tons of other people that I know, and they've really spoken highly of you. I mean, it's just amazing to be able to have someone who has these credentials that is actually, skilled and educated and credentialed in reviewing resumes to be able to help us on this summit. And, thank you so much for your time, Donna. And for those of you who are struggling to get jobs, say you haven't had success getting through the door, I highly encourage you to go to DIY Career Docs and check out the website. It's extremely affordable.
Out. I mean,
reach out to Donna. Yeah.
This is the most helpful group of people, Emma and all the people I've met, that we all want to help each other. We want to help you. And, we're excited about sharing our passions and making the world a better place. I know it sounds trite and trivial, but it's true. That Emma especially is a major bright star.
Oh goodness!
You help so many people, Emma. I'm just impressed with what
Thank you, Donna.
I'm honored to be a part of this, and would love to help anybody with any further questions or suggestions and collaborate with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Donna. And hopefully everyone on this summit, you have been empowered to go write your resume, go write your cover letter, and hopefully this has helped you get that potential dream job and get you into that interview. Thank you so much for joining us on this session, and we look forward to seeing you in more amazing New Grad Success Summit seminars coming up soon. So we'll see you soon.
Bye. Good luck.